You raise a good point. They look fine. Because concussion is considered a silent and hidden epidemic. Because when someone sustains a brain injury, they don't put a turban on their head. I mean, one of the things I was thinking of coming into your show and wearing a turban to make the point. So we don't look at it. You don't have a cast, like many other injuries. So, and the further problem, it was interesting. I went and reviewed some more notes from last night before I came here. And I had forgotten a couple of the aspects. In a concussion, okay, football player, let's take gets hit, has a whiplash effect, and see, keep in mind, you don't have to be hit on the head to have a concussion. So that's one. So the whiplash effect, like an auto accident, the brain is bouncing. Now he gets a concussion standing up. Now he whacks the ground. So now his head is hitting the ground. Now the brain starts bouncing again. He realistically can get 2 concussions in that same incident. Now we're talking our soldiers. They're driving along in an armored vehicle. Now, a mine goes off. All right, they're near the mine. The explosion can be rippling their brain. Plus, now the vehicle gets overturned, so they get flipped. So just like a regular auto accident, they can sustain further brain injuries from that accident. Then you take it a step further. What if they're in shelling for 3 hours? I mean, I've read stuff where they're behind the thick concrete thing, and those shock waves are going right through the concrete into the person's brain. So realistically, someone could be sustaining more than a couple of handfuls of concussions if they're sitting in shelling for multiple hours. And it's kind of ironic. I brought this with me. This is one of my little toys I had as a kid. And during World War I, they used to talk about shell shock, and that this was psychological. Right. People were wacky, and they were looking to get out. World War II, they called it battle fatigue. Now they talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, okay? Right. Realistically, that shell shock was a pretty accurate thing, because if you take the notion that, okay, the shells have gone off, the explosions have gone near, the ripple effect of the bomb explosion is now adversely impacting the brain. And what people don't think about enough is that brain injury involves thinking, emotions, personality, and also anything physical. Ears, hearing, taste, smell, vision, your motor coordination. And a simple way to remember all the symptoms, think of someone who you've seen under the influence of alcohol.
Right.
They can have poor hand-eye coordination, personality change, blackouts, just memory, not remembering something, going to say something, not doing it. So any part of the brain can be impacted. And I think where we're really miseducating the people is we'll say, okay, we're going to give you a little sidelight about your son or daughter, see how they're doing, or an adult. That's like going, Joe, to getting a physical. And I said, we got to bring logic back. If you went to a doctor, okay, and now I'm the doc, and I check you out from here to here.
Right.
And now I say, okay, Joe, you're fine. Go. Would you feel satisfied with that for a physical evaluation, for your yearly one?
Well, I'm one of these people that would say, wow, you didn't find anything. I wouldn't want to know anything else. Wrong person to ask.
Okay.
But I know what you're saying. You're right.
Yeah. They've looked at some isolated things. And see, so that's a real danger. So there's a concern that we're saying, why is there a rush to evaluate to get somebody back on the playing field? Doctors have a duty, do no harm, provide the best medical care.
Well, I think in that case, you're dealing with not only the coaches who want their school team, no matter what it is, to win, but also the parents who want their kid to be able to play the sport, and then the kid who actually wants to play the sport and says, I'm fine. So you're dealing with a lot of different aspects there, aren't you?
Oh, no question. There's multiple issues. There's the old school of pressure to win at all costs, be macho, play hurt. And especially now, I think more with today's economic times, you have people believing at the high school level, boy, my son or daughter is so great, they're going to get a full athletic scholarship somewhere. So they can't be sitting out, because if they sit out, that can ruin their chance of obtaining a scholarship.
You were talking about stress from combat. It made me think about a profession that we normally don't think about, the stunt women and men who are in movies. They fill in for the actor or actress doing it. That's a real, and I can recall shots of them and, battle scenes or explosions where they're being thrown. Very dangerous profession too, right?
I would think so. What I tell people, I did this last night after we briefly were emailing. Right. What I tell people is, you can get injured any place. So after we were talking, I Googled wrestling. And I come up with, there was a kid, I forget the name, at 18, he qualified for the Olympics, youngest person ever. At 22, he had to retire due to multiple concussions from wrestling.
You were talking about boxing, too, that the individual who's in the ring, they get hit in the face, boom, that's concussion number one, and then there's nobody there to catch them, so they hit the floor, and that's concussion number two. Very dangerous sport. It is.
And to show you, we'll bring in some physics here. And they also talk about not only the concussive blows, but they also, the term that's been used actually for quite a long period of time is subconcussive blows. These are blows to the head that are damaging your brain, but you are not considered to have a brain injury. And unfortunately, again, people think you have to be knocked out to have a concussion. Only about 10% of concussion brain injuries involve a knockout. But the important point, your boxing has been measured. One boxing punch, a pro punch, is measured at 20 miles an hour. A football player, an NFL player waiting to receive the ball, was hit at 25 miles an hour by the defensive player. Soccer ball, we mentioned here, it was measured, the flight of a soccer ball was 70 miles an hour heading. Lacrosse balls are measured at up to 100 miles an hour. So depending on who's doing the measurement, and the type of athlete. So we're talking some pretty strong velocity here.
I guess the term would be lobotomy. If someone needs brain surgery, can the brain injury that we're talking about, can they be corrected?
No.
Wow.
Well, let me, when you said lobotomy, so let me react. They can have surgery to help them function, but there's been damage to the brain. So I guess I would want to say, how are you defining corrected? Just like goes back to functional recovery and recovery. I mean, there are some surgeries that can bring people back, okay? But I think they would have to talk with their doctor to find out, okay, what do I have to watch out for in the future? Are there certain things I need to avoid doing that I didn't have to do before? Are there certain things I have to start doing that I didn't have to do before? So,
Now, you're working with schools throughout New York State, and what kind of response do you get, and what kind of adjustments are schools making?
Well, I work with more directly parents, okay? Parents will call and consult, and typically the parents who contact me are ones who have been frustrated because they're not getting the support that they think they should be getting through the school system. And this isn't only in-state, I get calls from people out of state. And one of the issues goes back to, if you're familiar with special education laws, they have a person can be classified as having a type of disability that interferes with learning. And then they also have these educational plans. I think I'm drawing a blank on it. But in these plans, you don't need a classification, but you can have accommodations that are made to assist the person learn. Because, the student athlete, we have forgotten about the student part of the athlete part. There's been such a focus on getting someone back to the athletic field and ignoring why they're in school in the first place, to learn. And it's kind of ironic that here we have an educational institution that has them participating in a sport that can be injuring their brain that will actually make them less effective.
And something case folks missed it in the beginning of the program, you were mentioning that the younger you are when you have a brain injury, it's a lot different than when you're older and get a brain injury.
Yes. One of the things that many people, in fact, I didn't realize it until I started doing this, is a brain doesn't finish developing till you're in your 20s. So it would be ideally better if you were 25 years old and sustained a brain injury than if you were 10 years old.
What do you mean by your brain developing? What's the difference between someone who's 10, 15, or 20?
Okay, I can't give you a precise thing,
right,
the name, but I do have a visual, but that's okay. Basically, different areas of the brain develop at different times.
Right.
Okay, and are complete developing. For example, here, the frontal area, it's believed that this isn't fully developed till in your early 20s.
Okay.
All right. Now here you have planning. What we call simultaneous processing, where we do this, we pull things together to draw a conclusion. Problem solving, impulse control. These things get injured. Sometimes we may be working with somebody who they'll say, they're just not caring, they're just doing what they want. Nah, their brain's been injured. And they really don't have any ability to control that right now.
Do you think, I've heard some people say that they don't think football will be in existence 10 years from now. There won't be any NFL because people are becoming more aware of this and the injuries are getting worse. Do you agree or disagree? Or?
That's a good question. I personally think the NFL is an amazing organization.
Sure is.
I mean, it's a huge corporation, non-for-profit. I question that status, which is now being questioned again in Congress. And I think one of the pro basketball players, Mark Cuban, if I'm pronouncing his name right, he raised that same question. There was an article saying 10 years from now the NFL isn't going to exist. I think realistically, a very good argument is the NFL tentacles have been able to influence legislation. They've been able to, at the state level, at the federal level, they've influenced what is appropriate education. And so they have a lot of political clout. Plus, they have the money. I mean, it's estimated $9 billion. What, the CEO makes $30 million. And somebody prorated that out. If he worked an 8-hour day, he makes $20,000 plus an hour.
Right.
So, but I think where the change is going to occur, if and when it does occur, it is going to come from lawsuits saying, look, NFL, or look, NCAA, you knew about concussions and the dangers. I did my dissertation on concussions. I can go back 2 centuries that raised the question that brain injury is serious. And it's been minimized by various parties for a long period of time. And so one of the arguments that I've seen in the lawsuits, and I've had discussions with different law firms, is that they feel that they've been negligent and not keeping the players informed. That players should be adequately informed about the risk of participating in concussion. And kind of ironically, when I was doing my dissertation, I'm reading the New York State Athletic Code or whatever, and it talks about physical education involves teaching people the benefits and the risk of a sports participation.
Well, I'm going to have to say, to be continued. This is an incredible topic, and I want to thank you so much for joining us. Our guest today has been Dr. Donald Brady of Syracuse. He is a nationally recognized licensed clinical psychologist, licensed marriage and family therapist. And how can folks get in contact with Dr. Donald Brady?
Sure. Actually, I go by the name of Don. I keep it okay. I have a website, donbrady.com, that has all the contact information, phone number, office phone number, and also email. And for people who want to learn more about concussions, there's 2 articles on my publications page. Click on them. It'll go to the National Association of School Psych. You'll get the articles.
Well, Dr. Brady, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Joe Cotta. Don't fall today or slip. Have a wonderful day.